So this is Dr. Bart Rademaker, Prescription for Your Transformation, Real People, Real Conversations, and Real Success. And I think we got a little snafu here with Facebook Live or Blue Jeans. I'm going to just double check to see. Yes, we are indeed live, Sean. So great. So I'm really excited as I finish the final connections here. And really appreciating the fact that, life isn't just a standard experience. Everything is just absolutely different. We're all incredibly unique. And to try to position us in a certain way is really unfortunate. And it really doesn't allow us to appreciate the truth of what's really going on. And I talk about that because my own personal story, which is kind of interesting in many respects, but in particular as it relates to our veterans. And these are those guys out there that really commit so much of their own lives to allow us to be safe in our own country, to protect our sovereignty, to really make sure that we can focus on our own freedom rather than being scared. And what's interesting, being a foreigner myself, born in Holland, lived all over the world, coming to the United States, and my passion to make sure that our vets get heard and they get taken care of. And so I'm delighted today to be talking to an incredible individual whose passion is out there for the vets as well. He's a vet himself. In fact, he's not a veteran. He's still actively busy within our armed forces. And I think it's important for us to appreciate, what's that life out there? What do these guys really get? Because I think it's important that most of us don't really understand what it's like, and also appreciate the challenges that they have to go through. And one thing that I'm so impressed with Sean is how he's out there helping veterans make that transition from a very unique lifestyle into the real world again successfully. So Sean, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely honored to be here. Thank you for having me, Bart.
So let's hear a little bit about your background, because you've been in the military, you were a leader, and then you realized that once leaving that active role, you really felt the need to help others. And what was the motivation behind that? What was your personal why, if you will? What was your purpose for your mission?
Absolutely. So it all started with why I went into the service in the first place. That I knew very young that I saw myself as a protector. I saw myself as someone to serve others, whether it was as a little kid playing with G.I. Joes or what that little boy grew up to. And I knew I wanted to be where the people were. And while all the service, contributes greatly to our defense and our way of life, I really wanted to be in the Army, in the infantry, because that was where leading and protecting and guiding young soldiers, which are America's greatest asset, our sons and daughters. And so from there, I realized while I was deeply passionate about that role, I also knew that as I loaded onto the airplane and left my wife and 5-month-old son behind, that it wasn't how I wanted to raise my family long term. And that for 4 years, being active duty, that was good. I was proud to do that, but my hat is off to those that sacrifice for 20 plus years going time and time again into harm's way. So even after leaving that, my heart was still in taking care of those that I had left in the service and those that were getting out as well. But I realized, I was in the middle of the transition myself, and it was muddy waters. So fast forward, the first step out of the military was for a paycheck, right? My thought was, I know leadership and operations. That's what the Army has trained me to do. That's what I can do in the civilian sector. And the job worked, but the corporate culture was wrong. And I was constantly beating my head against a wall where they were an efficient machine and I was trying to develop people. And I was happy to develop people that could then drive the machine, but that grace needed to be given to train people and do those kind of things, the care and feeding, if you will,
Right.
Which eventually landed me at Disney in the human resource field, being able to take care of not only our veterans that were coming into the organization, but also over 20,000 Disney employees, and they call them cast members because they're part of
Right.
the show. But
Right.
but being able to support them, which was deeply fulfilling. And as Disney ramped up their veteran hiring, I was on the very first wave of their veterans initiative of Heroes Work Here, where they committed to hiring 1,000 veterans within 3-year period. That was the CEO's commitment.
Right.
And by being part of the team that developed an employee resource group specifically around veterans across all services and all branches, teaching other companies how to do it, training our other HR recruiters, generally creating that space where we were an employer of choice. Within that 5-year window, we hired over 8,000 veterans. So that all deeply, deeply fulfilling. And finally, my wife said, Sean, every time you go back to serving and helping these veterans transition, whether it's an individual or an entire room full, you come back on cloud 9. Why don't we just do that full time?
Right.
And so that led me to the current stage of the journey.
So really, you've been on this mission since you're a little kid, and that's amazing. And one thing I have to say with all my friends that I have been in the armed services, I mean, just all incredible individuals, and I'd like to spend a moment just on that part. Not all the horrific things that happen, but really, these qualities that are ingrained in you.
Right.
From you were explaining to me earlier, it's all mission, and it's being that self-starter, and it's not the discipline, but it's great habits and all phenomenal attributes that really strengthen character.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's something very unique about the veteran population, is that they do come from all over the country. They come from even all over the world, as that is a path to citizenship. So some people will serve to get there. But the commonality is that everyone raises their right hand and swears to support and defend something larger than themselves. So instantly you have people that are service focused, that they're there for a higher purpose. Each branch of the service, and when I say service, I'll use some of these words interchangeably, but I'm talking about Air Force, Marines, Navy, Army, and Coast Guard. And so a soldier won't necessarily, in their vernacular, represent a Marine. I'm not a soldier, I'm a Marine. Right? Deep pride in the branch that they served in. However, at the end of the day, we're all service members, and it's service members for a reason. And each branch, each service has values that, so for the Army values, courage, integrity, leadership, duty, those just name a few, and it's similar across all the branches. So when you talk about, I want somebody in my organization that has integrity, that understands true meritocracy, that you will be promoted, you will grow and develop based on your skills and your contributions. Through common struggle, we all go through a basic training, whether it's a enlisted soldier basic training or an officer basic training. All of us are indoctrinated into a way of thinking that you are all part of a team. You are all going to go through something very hard and challenging, and none of you can make it through individually. So you have to come out on the other side as a tighter unit, and recognizing in face of challenges at work, challenges in the service, and again, these quickly bridge to their future success, that the problem solving, the troubleshooting, being able to work through real time, and in some cases life-threatening situations, they become very adaptable in those environments.
And so you've kind of synthesized this in a 3-pronged format, and that is what? Mission, it's tribe, and what was the third one?
Guide.
And so explain a little bit about that, because here again, so much respect for you guys, because you developed this clarity of different values and qualities that help us all be successful. And again, I think that's something that most of us could actually learn from and have more of. I never was part of any armed services, and so I didn't get that opportunity to have a very concentrated education, if you will, on that. And I think a lot of us miss out on that. And interesting enough, I'm sure there's a bit of a knocking heads when you guys go into a corporate world, and you see it's such a very successful system out there, and then you go to a more ad hoc environment. So explain a little bit about, the importance of these three things that you use a lot in your coaching and your workshops.
Yes. So I would put two lenses on it. One is for the individual, the mission, tribe, guide, and the other is for the organization. So starting with the individual, in the military, there is an understanding of the power of singular focus, right? That's something I've seen that you've talked about before, and being able to articulate, here is why we're doing what we're doing. This is our mission. This is our objective. This is our purpose. And as it starts to become personal, this is my passion. And so you're able to guide all of your activities and all of your energies. Is whatever this new activity in a line with my personal mission, with my personal purpose and my passion? You can get as existential as you want. Is it why I was put on this earth? To, hey, this is what I'm focusing on right now, right? It can go very big or very, very laser focused. So understanding that mission keeps individuals on track. I've had individuals that were getting out of the service, and they told me their purpose was they wanted to spend quality time with their family. They wanted to provide a good life, but they've sacrificed so much that now they want to be able to really be there to raise their kids. And I said, that's fantastic, let's do it. And then they would say, but I'm interested in this contracting job that will pay me significant amounts of money, but I have to get deployed back overseas and be put in danger, no longer in uniform. And I said, okay, well, that could be a great option for some, but it doesn't align with your mission, or at least what you're articulating your mission to be.
Right.
So being clear on your mission. The tribe, you become the people that you spend time with. And typically it's the 5 people you spend the most time with are the people that you start to mirror in the way they are a husband, in the way they are a father, in the way they carry themselves as a professional. I'm happy for you to have friends in college that you go out to the bar with. That's great. But the group that goes out and drinks every night may not be the tribe you want to take you to the next level of life. And so being really clear individually, who are those individuals? And I've actually made the list of here are 50 men and mentors that I respect as husband, father, and business professionals. And of those, who do I have a strong relationship? And here's the top 15. And so making sure that I'm continuing, whether you want to call it a board of directors or any of those type of things, having a guiding group. And then finally,
and they don't all have to be alive, right?
Truly. That would get into the guide category, right, of whether it's a close friend, somebody that has been on this journey, right? We're all going through this thing called life, and sometimes age matters, but sometimes it doesn't, because they may have been walking that specific path a little bit longer, where one mentor and one guide may help you over here with how to be a better father.
I guess that probably comes more in your category of guides. I kind of interrupt that for a second, but again, it's one thing I learned is a hierarchy of relationships, and it's all about who are you listening to?
Yes.
And who are those people? So actually, you know what? I kind of interrupted you there. So that's the next part, right?
That's great. And it's at any point, please stop me, because I want to make sure that it's resonating for all those out there that that guide, it can be a friend, it can be and again, like you said, sometimes those two blur. What hat are you putting on right now? Are you putting on my friend hat, or am I putting on, hey, here's something you need to hear as a hug or a swift kick in the rear end?
Right.
It can be something, an inspirational speech, or the Les Browns, the Tony Robbins, those people. Like you said, who are you listening to as your guide? It can also be, who are you reading, right? And that goes to, great, is this Julius Caesar I'm looking at? Is this Plato and Aristotle? Who are those individuals that I am looking to say, what I know about this person, I want to respect and emulate, and understanding we're all human, and they may be flawed too, but at least those individuals, success leaves clues, I believe. And so if they are further along in this journey, nobody needs to walk this path alone. Others have come before, others will come after, and following So that's the individual, and then just a very quick abbreviated version on organizations. If you are a leader within an organization, if you have your own company and you want to bring veterans in, and I would say this also applies more broadly to the population because there's a lot of commonality. But if you say, hey guys, this is Joe's used car lot and we're here to make a profit, that's not going to resonate. But if you say, you know what, we may sell used cars, but this is a second chance for somebody who can't afford a new car, and we're going to be able to help them get to work and provide for their family. And so that is our driving mission, is to be able to get people in the right car that they can afford. So it's a very clear, what is the underlying mission? And you see a lot of organizations starting to move that way to recognize that, there's a philanthropic, there's a deeper meaning to what we do as opposed to purely for the shareholder. Now, I'm all about people being able to benefit and financially grow, but it's because they're serving something larger.
Yeah, I think ultimately, when we all help each other,
yes,
and look beyond ourselves, it's going to help.
Yes.
So are you being distracted there? Is that your wife want to say something?
No, it's not. We're good. I'm just turning the camera slightly so you don't see bodies going by and.
Oh, that's all right. I locked my door so nobody can come in. So it's an important part, and again, I want to emphasize the fact that you've got the experience and you're still currently helping in the services, and so much respect for you guys. So many sacrifices that you make. Some people have to make the ultimate sacrifice, and I think a lot of us take that really for granted, and really have a picture of the military that is really unfair and unjust. And like you said, I mean, not everybody is a Rambo or a ticking bomb. There's a lot of great individuals out there making a difference for the entire world, but also protecting our borders and protecting
right.
Our safety. And like an Aussie friend of mine shared with me the other day, it says it's you guys that allow us to sleep restfully at night. And so what I think that's great about you is your deep desire to help others from a very young age. And now you've got that experience in the armed services, and so you know what it's like. And so you're in a perfect position to support others. And in my particular case, I'm fortunate that I get to help the Navy SEALs and the Marines, or any of you guys that have gone through some serious situations and developed PTSD or TBI. And so want to ask a little bit about that part, and because PTSD is again something that, in my opinion, is really under-recognized or underappreciated, and we need to find a lot more empathy and compassion and support and patience for you guys that have undergone some incredibly difficult situations, and that's part of your future work as well, or current work, right?
Yes, that is, and first of all, thank you for what you're doing. I think that's just powerful to be able to serve in the way that you are for those individuals that have received injuries. I think what I continue to come back to, and I went through my own journey of PTSD, having spent 15 months in Baghdad, and then a city just north of Baghdad, leading an infantry platoon, going door to door, clearing houses for explosives and weapons, and getting shot at, and even at one point being blown up in a vehicle. That when I got out, I didn't want to deal with it. I put those demons in a shoebox, I kicked it under the bed, and I tried to move on with my life. But life has a funny way, when you don't learn the lessons that you're given the opportunity to continue bringing them up. And I think it is amazing that there's becoming more recognition of post-traumatic stress and of TBI and those kind of injuries. I also push hard for veterans to recognize that these are not terminal conditions. You are not labeled with post-traumatic stress forever. That I strongly believe that with post-traumatic stress, just like any trauma, whether it's exercising where you're tearing up the muscles, if you allow yourself to heal properly, there's post-traumatic growth. and the growth that comes when you learn from those experiences. And the easiest example I've been able to overlay in storytelling, because that's a large part, is getting out of, I did this, I did that, I saw this, therefore, what does it mean about me as a human being? And I'll share one of my hardest stories was not the combat, because at a certain point, the combat was two consenting adults. That guy's a jerk, I'm being a jerk, we're shooting at each other. We both opted into this relationship. What was hard was when we went in and believed somebody to be a trigger man for an explosive and pulled him away from his family, and his wife and his daughters and his kids are grabbing at his legs and crying and weeping. And that was hard for me for a long time. And fortunately, I had some great mentors as I went through the healing journey that said, Sean, what would have happened if that was Saddam's troops? He'd be dead. They wouldn't have bothered to talk to him. Okay, what did you guys do? Well, we talked to him for 2 hours, realized he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and we let him go, and he just had a rough evening, but he went back to his family. And so those kind of recognitions overlay on top the hero's journey. So I don't know if some of your audience is familiar with Joseph Campbell's model, and it's been reiterated in a few different versions, but the hero's journey essentially is the monomyth. And what that means is there's a single myth that these ancient cultures that have nothing to do with each other, from the ancient Greeks to Native Americans to people all to the ancient Chinese, all over the world, thousands of years ago, and even to current day, had a shared story, but they never interacted. And the myth essentially went that there's a common, now it happened to be a man at that time, now we've got equal opportunity, so there are women involved, but at the time it happened to be a man who you could relate to, right? So whether you're looking at Beowulf, or if you want to go biblical with Jesus, or you want to fast forward to Luke Skywalker, right? It runs the gambit, but there's an individual, they're just a farm boy living with his aunt and uncle, something traumatic happens, and they're thrust into struggle, and they find a mentor that guides them, whether it's Yoda or any other historical perspective, and then they come out of that journey having learned something, having, whether it's a magical sword or whether it's that internal strength to be able to serve others. Right. And so by layering the hero's journey and the mission tribe and the guide, and what Viktor Frankl talks about with Man's Search for Meaning, and kind of weaving these stories together, veterans are able to recognize there's hope. And that is the single biggest piece of this entire conversation, is that there is hope for everyone, no matter how difficult the trauma, whether it was literally going to war or figuratively going to war, in a bad marriage, in a car accident, in a broken home. But that these things happen for you, not to you. And as long as you take the time to recognize, what am I supposed to learn from this? How am I stronger, as opposed to now I am hurt and broken, I'm a monster. I'm not a protector, I'm a monster. No, you're a protector and you're a healer, and here's why. And this is, so those layers help people recognize and get out of their own way sometimes.
So said differently is that, we all have our own particular journey, and it's different and unique, and there's no right and there's no wrong. And ultimately, all of our intentions are positive in that sense. I mean, all behavior is motivated by positive intention, even though it may not appear that way. And we're not alone. And so that we could work together, help each other, learn from each other, and come from that space of optimism and hope, and say, okay, great. What is it that I now can do to get the results that I really want, versus staying stuck in that victim place, which is understandable why people get stuck there.
Right.
But also realizing, well, hang on a second, I'm not the only one, and so many people have succeeded. And so all I need to do is figure out, how that can happen. And there's so many parts and elements to that. And so obviously you're a great resource for a lot of people, especially the vets. Very grateful for what it is that you do. And so if people want to find you, John, how do they find you?
Yes, so they can either go to the website at veteransjourney.com,
Okay.
or I'm always honored to connect either on LinkedIn, just Sean Bode, or sending me an email at Sean@Bode. I'm sorry, at Sean@veteransjourney.com. We made it even simpler. Sean@veteransjourney.com.
All right.
So
Awesome.
yes,
Yeah, and again, hopefully I'll be able to send some vets to you as well who've undergone some, incredible challenges and working with the TBI. And again, for all those out there, I mean, PTSD, TBI is not just restricted to combat vets.
right.
It's so many different situations, and none of those people who undergo that should ever be left alone. And so we all need to stand up and support and respect. And so once again, I really want to thank you for all the services and what you continue to do from a leadership perspective, helping the new recruits understand these kinds of values, and of course helping the vets. And so as we wrap it up, Sean, any last few comments or messages that you'd like to share with others?
Yes, just thank you. And it is a volunteer force. All of us join to serve in one way or another, and regardless of what drew us to that decision, I think you named it accurately, that stand up and reach out. This is, I appreciate one veteran said, listen, I don't want a handout, I want a hand up. And that recognition that working together, we can create some powerful growth, as well as leverage those experiences for amazing impacts here within our organization across the country.
No, thank you for that, and I'm also thanking Lori for thanking us for what we do. She just gave a little comment here.
Beautiful.
And for any of you listening in, just pass this message on, pass this short interview to others, so that, especially if you're familiar with a vet, and whether you know they're having challenges or not, just share this Facebook video with others, because the purpose of Prescription for Your Transformation is really helping people discover what they didn't know that makes the difference. It's that piece of information, that piece of the puzzle that you've been searching forever or didn't know you were searching, and then you find Sean. Then it's like, okay, great. Now I actually can feel the truth about hope. And so, Sean, once again, thank you so much. And I'm really grateful that your wife is also part of this process.
Yes.
And an integral part of the work that I understand that you do is have your wife help the wives of the vets. And so thank her for that as well. So, Sean, thank you so much for today.
My pleasure. Thank you.